His bio is in your program. He's a wonderful representative of people coming to our community and to our nation to make a difference. He came here from the Republic of Congo with his mother and brothers and is now making his mark not only in the community. He's been working for College for America. He's a very productive person. He's become an inspirational speaker and a wonderful, powerful message about why we need to open the doors of opportunity for people to come to America in search of the American dream. Please welcome Deo Mwano to speak to you this morning.
Good morning. I sat next to my brother, and my mother had her arms over us. As I looked over outside the window, and the airplane engine was making noises, all I can see was white powder. 2 hours before that, my family landed in New York City with 200 other refugees. My family was the only family that headed to New Hampshire. Our plane landed, came outside, and our caseworker from Lutheran Services came and met us. Our caseworker spoke French. We didn't speak a word of English. He brought us to our apartment at Wilson Street. It was a 3-bedroom with secondhand furniture and plastic bags full of clothes. My brothers and I were very excited. It was surreal to us that we resettled in Manchester, New Hampshire, in America, after living in the refugee camp for 2.5 years. My father was assassinated in 1997 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. My mother at the time was 26 years old, and she had 4 children. We were scared that our life was going to be taken away as well. By the help of the international world, we ended up moving to a refugee camp and resettled. In our apartment, we lived in the main street, so there was always noises going down the street. You would hear police cars, you would hear sirens. It paranoid me because all I can remember is the noise that I heard from gunshot leaving in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Within the first 4 days, we heard a knock on our door. We opened our door. It was a nun named Sister Irene. She spoke French. We felt like it was awesome to open the door to let her in. Sister Irene became an angel. She helped my mother get her first job. She opened up the community to us. We started attending St. Anthony Church up the street from where we lived. We met some Canadian families that resettled in New Hampshire a long time ago, and they opened up their doors to us. One of those families was the Bissonnette and Boschman family. The Bissonnette and Boschman family took us in. When we moved to New Hampshire, we had no money, no friends. We had to start from scratch. During the holidays, the Bissonnette family would bring all their family members and relatives together to celebrate our birthdays. As we acclimated, my mother started going to an ESL class at the Institute. My brothers and I got enrolled in Wilson Elementary School. When we got to school, we felt like we started finding our grounding. In our ESOL classes, we had other students that came from all over the world as well. As time progressed, we adapted very quick. But for my mother, it was still a challenge for her because she had to stop going to English school and find a job. The money that we received from the social welfare wasn't enough to sustain us. So it was important for my mother to get a job. Knowing that transportation is a heart, it's very difficult in Manchester. One of the key things my mom needed to work on was getting her license. Luckily, the Bissonnette family helped her. They even went as far as co-signing on her first car loan. That was a major milestone for us, that we had transportation and we can go places. Prior to that, luckily we lived very close to Vista Food that was down the street from us. Luckily we could walk down the street and we would push our cart with food on it. And during emergency time, sometimes my mom would put my brothers on her back and walk to the local hospital. But when we received our vehicle, it was a milestone. I eventually went on to go to school at McLaughlin Middle School, and that's where I met a teacher who changed my life. The teacher was an orchestra teacher who opened the doors for us. She allowed me to join an ensemble where we played the bongos and we got to perform at different places. Sister Irene thought that I was excelling in my learning and thought maybe going to St. Joseph at Pine Street was a better approach for me. I didn't want to transition to St. Joe's. I didn't want to tuck my shirt in. I didn't want to wear uniform every day. But little did I know, St. Joe's was the best decision that I made. There was only 4 black kids in the entire school, but I felt like I was part of the family. My friends' parents would sometimes cover for the extra cost for sports and extra activity. The school opened up their doors to allow dance and music to be a way that I expressed myself. We ended up changing. Instead of going to St. Anthony, we started going to a local non-denominational church called Believer Christian Outreach in the corner of Somerville and Wilson. By the time I reached 7th grade, we lived in the U.S. for 2 years. And the memories and the experience of trauma that I went through in Africa started haunting me. I was very depressed. I thought about suicide. My mother found someone else that she started to have a relationship with, ended up having a child. I became very distant from my mother. I thought about multiple times, why did my family have to go through what we went through? Why did my father get assassinated? But the community that was around me, from church and school, was able to support me. There was a lady in my church named by Joanne Trombley. She became a mediator. She would always come to my house and try to reason with my mother. She ended up getting me involved with an organization called Youth with a Mission, where you traveled all over America to perform and do community outreach in some of the toughest neighborhoods. One summer, I was sitting there as a speaker was speaking about forgiveness. And I was confronted in my heart that a lot of the bitterness and anger that I had, it was in result of pain and anger that I had towards the people that assassinated my father's side of family who gave up on us. That night, I decided to forgive all the memories and all the experiences I had. And that was the cornerstone of my foundation. I went on and graduated out of middle school and then went to high school at Manchester Memorial, transferred to Mount Zion Christian School my senior year, and graduated and went to college. Going to college was a milestone for my family. Not too long before that, whoever thought 8 years after a family of refugees that resettled to Manchester that their first child would end up going to college. I graduated out of college with my double major in international relations and history, and the following year I went back for my MBA. I've been involved in the communities for the last 17 years living here. I don't tell my story to boast about my success. I tell my story to represent stories of refugees that have resettled here in Manchester. I am not an anomaly. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, they've gone on to be engineers, to be doctors, to be pharmacists. Even though some of you guys feel that New Hampshire has a lot of refugees, when we look at percentage regarding other states, we're actually very small in terms of percentage of refugees that end up moving here. That means there's an opportunity for every single one of you guys that are sitting out here to actually disrupt the trajectory of refugees that end up resettling in Manchester. The community that came around me, it set the foundation of the success that I had. I've had the opportunity to travel all over America to tell my story in schools, businesses, political campaigns, in nonprofits. Every time I tell my story, I tell people that my family was not able to do it on their own. It was the community that was around me that ended up changing it. Many of the refugees that resettle in America, all they're looking for is you to come alongside them. They're not looking for your money. They're looking for you to set the path for them. Like how the Bissonnette family decided to teach my mom how to drive, even went as far as co-signing for her car. I've joined a program back in 2008 called Bring It. Bring It is an after-school program that started at Beach Street. Eventually, it moved to Hillside. We serve about 120 to 70 students every night from all over the world. We use dance, performing arts, and homework to be able to connect. We've seen many of our students go on and do great things. Today, I want to challenge you. As a community, as community leaders, as we look at where the current political status of this country is, Where do you sit? What is your calling? What is your involvement? Refugees are the most vulnerable immigrants that end up resettling here. Only a small percent of refugees actually get a chance to resettle in a Western country. Today, there's 65 million refugees worldwide, and only 1% of that number actually get a chance to resettle. When you look out in your communities and you see people that you don't know, how can you support them? If you have a business, how can you open up doors for them to get opportunities so they can excel? I thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you guys. And I would love to connect with you guys if you want to learn more of how you can get involved. Thank you so much.
Big round of applause for Deo Mwano. Watch that video playing right now. He and his brothers have performed on Dancing with the Stars.
We've got some special fans in the audience whose amazing and inspirational story is one that we felt should be shared.
All right, Brooke, thank you. I'm here with the Mwano family.
Great job, Deo. Thank you very, very much.